one of our
I don't know.
Residential.
Just send me an email. That's my refrain. It says send me an email.
He is no longer with us.
I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to Zoom you. I don't want to see you. Just send me an email. Tell me what you want me to do. Here, thanks, Fred.
I'm glad you see it, firsthand.
10 seconds, okay. Perfect.
Sure.
He does a beautiful job. Still
Their cost of goods are going
Everybody's home tonight. That's
I
nice.
go on the John's Pizza inflation scale.
Okay, welcome, gentlemen and people at home. Welcome to the meeting of the Rybrook Planning Board. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, my name is Rob Goodman. I am Chair of the Planning Board. My colleagues that are here are John Gerzan, Donald Crum, Scott Mendelson, Matthew Retner, Jeffrey Richmond, and Amy Schoen. Robert Zitt is our village attorney. Michael Nowak is our superintendent of public works. And Sarah Brown is our planning consultant from Hardesty and Hanover. Our planning board secretary, always loved in absentia, is Terry Orlando, who does all of our minutes and everything that gets us to here. So we always appreciate her. Just as a reminder for any professionals that are out there, we have board rules that you are invited to consult. We also have all of our meetings on the Rybrook website and all of our past minutes and even streaming video of our meetings. And finally, David Heiser, who I always omit, is our liaison from the Board of Trustees. So thank you, David, for being here and being patient with my always omitting you in my address. You're not wrong there, Dave. You're not.
Who's over?
Mine. Our first item is 105 Lincoln Avenue. And on that, Robert, why don't you give the board sort of the rundown on that? For
Sure.
procedural reasons, the applicant isn't here, and you're going to put this off until next month. But why don't you give us a background?
Sure. Last time we were here, the board had referred this out to the ZBA for a variance. Since then, the building inspector has issued a new notice of disapproval, essentially modifying the extent of the variance that would be necessary. So now I would suggest that the board re-refer the applicant to the ZBA based on the correct notice of disapproval. The applicant doesn't necessarily have to be here for that, so it would just be a resolution from the board to refer it again to the ZBA.
Yeah, the other issue is that the applicant failed to notice the public hearing,
Right.
which was a problem as well. So I think both sides decided that it would probably be best to put it off until next month. We are going to renotice the public hearing for next month, and we'll refer the matter to the ZBA so that hopefully by the next meeting, it'll be wrapped up and it'll be back before us.
I could see us postponing this because of lack of public notice. But why would you take such an action because there was a couple feet difference in the variance? It's still a variance.
It's still a variance, but it's got to be, our recommendation last time was the wrong variance.
But it could have been corrected administratively without having to postpone the meeting for a month, no?
So I think the
Is
notice,
that the law that you have to do?
yeah, the notice that had gone out was deficient, so I'd rather
Okay. All right,
Right.
thank you.
err on
It-
err on the cautious side and, do it all over
Okay.
again.
It just so happens that the lack of notice simplified that.
I'm always looking to simplify the life.
No, I know.
Okay, so let's, you have a referral resolution?
And I'm glad you have a new resolution because I did not second the one, the previous one.
I saw that. I saw
I said
that.
I must have been
You
in
weren't
spirit
here. Yeah.
There we
He,
go.
he was here in spirit. That's okay. So a resolution referring a site plan application to the Rybrook Zoning Board of Appeals for consideration of variances at 105 Lincoln Avenue. Whereas the planning board reviewed and considered an application at its September 14th, 2023 meeting, and pursuant to a revised notice of disapproval issued by the village building inspector dated October 5th. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board refers this application listed herein to the ZBA for a determination on the variance listed in the resolution.
Can I have a motion, a second, to adopt the resolution?
Moved.
Okay, second. This time around, I was second.
So I don't have to change.
That's
No.
right.
Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Retner,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes. And now we have a public hearing resolution. Will we notice? Okay.
Whereas application has been made for site plan approval for the property located at 105 Lincoln Avenue. Now therefore be resolved, the planning board of the village of Rybrook will hold a public hearing on November 9th, 2023 at 6:30 PM in Village Hall or in a virtual format as may be determined depending on public health concerns to consider the above referenced application. Be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby directed to comply with section 250-40 of the Village Code regarding notification of the public hearing.
Okay, can I have a motion, a second, to adopt that resolution?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Retner,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
since I wasn't here last time, are there any other issue with this application other than the variance from, on the?
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
no, really, that was
All
the
right.
principal
All
issue.
right, thank you.
Next item is Hidden Pond Drive, the Hidden Falls HOA. And I think this was scheduled last time for a public hearing, so can I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing?
Moved. Second.
Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Retner,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Joseph Riina, the owner of Site Design Consultant and the engineer for Hidden Falls Homeowners Association. We're seeking a steep slope application for a project which entails replacing an existing failing timber railroad tie wall with a precast concrete masonry unit wall, a two-tier wall. And the wall's located on common property. When we were here last, we received a couple of comments, which we've addressed. We've added a fence on the lower tier wall, and we provided a fence detail. The total disturbance is a little over 1,100 square feet of steep slopes.
Sarah, any planning issues?
No, all of our previous comments have been addressed.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Looks good.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a resolution?
Try and
Oh, for-
Did
you-
anybody review the design of the wall?
I think
Yes,
so.
we submitted structural calculations.
Okay.
Yep.
I know I saw them in our packet, but
Yeah.
did our engineer review them?
Now that it's been looked at, now it's gonna go for their review now.
You want us to approve the application and then you're gonna review it, and then if it's not acceptable, what do we do?
Probably comes back.
Then they won't get a building permit.
Yep.
Okay, so this would be subject to chairs, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, then we'll have a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Rettner,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes.
Thank
Okay, now, Rob, the resolution.
Resolution granting site plan and steep slope work permit approvals for property located at Hidden Pond Drive. Whereas the planning board is the approval authority for this requisite application. On October 12th, 2023, the planning board opened a duly noticed public hearing on the subject application, at which time all persons interested were given the opportunity to be heard. And whereas the planning board closed that public hearing also on October 12th, 2023, excuse me. Whereas the planning board has considered the environmental impact of the proposed action, alternatives to the proposed action, among other things required by village code. Now therefore be it resolved that for the reasons stated herein, the Village of Rybrook Planning Board hereby approves the site plans listed herein and approves a steep slope work permit for the proposed construction of a railroad tie wall replacement, among other things.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to.
Yeah, no. Can we have something in there that no building permit shall be issued until the engineering calculations are reviewed?
You can make that a condition.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
No objection.
The engineering calculations are reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Okay. Motion,
I think we did already, didn't we?
Yes, I
need
moved
a
it.
second.
Nobody seconded it, though.
Oh, second.
So Amy and John?
Yeah.
Okay, so Amy.
Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Rettner,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
thank you so much
Thank you.
for your patience. Okay,
It will be this simple.
261 North Ridge Street.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Larizza. I'm the developer of 259, 261, 263, and 265 North Ridge Street. Completed now. We sold 261. I have pictures here. I'll show everyone. And I sold the 4 modern income housings units. I'm just waiting to close. Tomorrow we'll close on number 2, and within the next 30 days I'll close on the other 2. It took a long time to close, not because of me. I was completed of last November. It's just that the agencies with the government and the Attorney General, it just took long, so I apologize. But as you could see, I kept it maintained, sprinkler systems, landscaping. I sodded, no seed. So I'm hoping everybody was happy with that. And now I just want to show some pictures of the one I'm here for the garage.
Lou, are the 4 in one building or one each? 2 and 2.
Yep. This was existing. And these are the pictures of what we are.
Lou, why are you coming with the idea of adding the garage now? Why was that not in the original design?
Well, I'll be honest with you.
That's what it was.
Originally, I was going to renovate that one existing home for one of my employees.
Yes, them down, please.
And then when I went to the town and I found out that they were going to assess it at roughly $600,000, $18,000 a year, he couldn't afford it. He couldn't afford the taxes.
Wait a minute, isn't this affordable house?
No, this is
This
two,
is the,
this is the
this is
existing.
the
Oh, the one on the,
marketplace,
one
on
on the,
the
single
right-hand
family.
side.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So after he told me, and I did the numbers with him, he's been with me for 30 years, that he couldn't afford the taxes, we found another home for him in Portchester. And I says, now I have to renovate this to conform to my standards. So as you see what I did, and I want everyone here to come look at what I did to the inside of that house. When you come inside, it's magnificent. So then I said, on Ridge Street, you can't leave the cars in the driveway, and I have the hammerhead, but all the homes have garages. So I decided at the last minute, I'm almost done. I'm going to be looking for my CO for that building in probably 2 weeks. But now I'm looking for a garage.
I apologize, but I drive by it every day, and by the way, they do look nice.
they're beautiful, actually.
I gotta give you a lot of credit for
Too
that.
close to the street, but beautiful.
Well, I couldn't help that.
I know.
The one furthest north, that has a two-car garage, right?
Yes.
And now there are 2 units in that building.
What one are you looking at?
One on the north, then each building has 2 units, 2
That's
homes.
259.
They both
right?
have, the affordable ones,
Have to.
they have 1-car garage each. Those are the gray ones.
Yes.
On the north side.
These,
I'm not here for them. I'm just showing you pictures of everything. I'm only here for you'll see
the one further south.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. You got me completely
Let me
confused.
see, look, can we see the
You are,
pictures, please?
you, this is on the third house way on the south.
Correct.
This is,
That's the original house.
and this here, this is the one I'm looking, no, not that.
No,
No,
it's this
no,
one,
that's-
I'm looking to put a garage.
right.
That's the one.
Okay, that's, I got you, I thought you were looking for the second affordable.
I don't know.
Take that back. Okay,
For the garage.
Too bad.
okay.
You could see listen, you guys know what it was for
Yes.
many years.
Yes.
The parking went from the whole front of the house, completely the whole front, was tandem cars. So,
I mean, now you know that there are 2 variances that the building inspector identified. Do you think there's any way of mitigating those, or is it just such a tight?
no, I can't because the existing home was within the buffer.
That was it.
I couldn't do
Right.
it. I didn't make the house bigger. It's the exact house.
Do you need that outdoor parking? You have an outdoor paved area.
Well, what happened there, they used to park about 8 to 10 cars. Now I'm down to a 2-car garage and a hammerhead. If I get the garage. If I don't get the garage, they're gonna park, they'll park outside.
You in effect would be like a 4 parking, 2 in a garage, 2 outside.
With the hammerhead,
Yes.
because you can't back into Ridge Street.
Many people do.
No, I know, but if we're doing new, you should abide by
Right.
the new code.
Right.
How are you gonna convince the zoning board to give you the variance on the outdoor parking there?
I don't know. I mean, I could tell you there's 130 square feet less of blacktop than there was originally with the garage and the hammerhead.
Because it's so close to the street.
But it was so close to the street.
Yeah.
What I'm going to suggest, because I am like my colleagues, I can't visualize anything.
No, I understand.
What I'd like to do is if you're amenable to it, is schedule a site visit.
Of course.
I'd like to see sort of what you're planning, because I'm just concerned about you know, how condensed that area is, and then, you know, everything needs access to the street, and it's hard, I can't visualize it by simply looking at these plans here, and you can
Where
sort
would
of
we
walk us
park to
through
do a
it.
site visit?
No, if you don't put the garage,
Great question.
No, I mean, for us to do a site visit, where would we park?
The issue is there's no parking. How are we gonna park off-site?
you'll have to park off-site.
That's not good.
I'm not crossing Ridge
Of
Street.
course, you could park in the affordable and walk over.
I'm looking one step further
Yeah.
down the road, and I'm looking at the precedent setting here in a scenic overlay. That
What's the precedent?
Well, we are approving the garage and a large open door parking area very close to the road within the scenic overlay.
Well, that's, I mean, I'd like to see sort of what that
Granted
looks
you that
like.
every house going down the Ridge Street right now, it has a similar situation, but that was all grandfathered.
It's gonna be better, because before, there was 8 to 10 cars parking tandemly. Look at the picture, existing picture.
I'm completely
You know-
aware what was there before.
Right,
Completely
and now if I'm denied, they'll park 4 cars outside. There won't be a garage, and they'll park 2 in the driveway, and they'll
Personally, I don't, you know, yeah.
No,
it's
no,
a-
I'm
it's a
just
very-
saying.
I'm more in favor of a garage than the outdoor. It's the outdoor parking that gives me more of a concern than
Right.
the garage itself. Garage is gonna comfort to the home, is gonna be, yeah, I'm sure they're gonna do a good job with the
It's
with the
gonna
siding
match,
and
it's
everything
gonna
else.
match existing,
Exactly.
the siding, everything's gonna match the existing.
See, as far as I'm concerned, I wait till the zoning board acts.
Okay, but if you want to come, I'll give you my number,
Yeah, okay.
and you don't all have to come at once, you just
Of
call me,
course, of course.
and I'll take you through the tour of the inside of what I've done.
I would
And you could
just
say-
recommend that everybody communicates through Tara.
Okay.
Okay, so that way
Yeah,
we have
it's
a,
fine.
Yeah,
idea of
it's
who's
not,
going
it's
when,
not
so we don't have a
mandatory.
quorum,
I personally
notice
would like to
issues.
see it because I pass it, but it's hard to sort of get a sense of how close everything together, how close things are to the road. Obviously, if you know, if there's going to be, you know, site issues with coming out of the, you know, the driveway and stuff, it would just be, I think, clarifying for me to actually see the site rather than.
That was the site issue all along, and
Yeah.
this one is right on the curb.
Right,
Right
right.
on the curb.
That's why we put the
Exactly.
hammerhead,
Exactly.
Right.
so you could back out and pull out.
I would love to see how you did the back of the house. That, to me, that. I
Well,
would love to see
there's
that.
not really a backyard. There,
There's a lot of retaining walls, yeah.
no, there's a patio,
Yeah.
which was an existing patio. You come, I want you to come because,
No, I would like to see how you did it on the affordable homes too, the back of
oh
the
yeah,
house.
we built that retainer
Yeah,
wall.
yeah.
And just to bring this up, everyone was concerned about the drainage, okay? And Mike is witness. We had many storms, okay? But those storms were minor to what happened. Mike and I witnessed it, and Chris Broadbury and the mayor. The water company hit a 10-inch water main, and it broke for 3 hours. It ran directly into my storm system. And Ralph Mastermontical calculated with the water company 250,000 gallons of water went in that pond in 3 hours. That's equivalent to 12 inches of rain in an hour. And no one complained. Right, Mike? On the bottom. Yeah,
They did.
no.
but not about that.
Right. They didn't even know it. They didn't even know it. And now these 2 storms we had, we haven't had any issues.
The fourth house, is that your house too? The fourth one?
I sold it.
Yeah.
But you built that one as well?
Yes.
So all 4 homes were built by you?
Yes,
That's sold, isn't it?
it's sold.
Yes.
You know, I've been in front of this board now for 32 years.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm 65 now.
Congratulations.
You're a baby.
You know, when I started this, when I started this project, there was a gentleman on the board. His young child was in the 3rd grade, and now he graduated college.
Lou, now you're going into dangerous territory.
No, but I'm just saying.
From my perspective, you get into dangerous territory now.
That's it. So I'll be more than happy to show everybody. Show you October 18th at 2 o'clock is the ribbon cutting for the affordables, and Rybrook, of course, was invited from the county, and you're all welcome to come. No, but I'm just saying. And in regards to 261, just set it up with Taria.
Okay.
Saturday, Sunday, I'll just meet you and I'll show you. I have no problem. I'm proud of that. That's probably one of the best jobs that I've done with a renovation, with a house that was totally destroyed, especially the inside.
Chairman, while we are waiting for the zoning board to take a look at this issue, can we have the consultant maybe touch up once more on this line of sight?
Yeah, I think
With
we were
this
talking.
particular driver?
We were talking about that, Sarah, actually, the line of sight.
It's not going to work. Just don't even bother doing it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I know that.
There you go.
It doesn't work. It's
But-
been there. I can't even do it.
Go ahead, Sarah.
So what we had recommended in our memo,
I'm being honest though. It's not like I'm trying to.
Don't give away the store too early. Go ahead, Sarah.
we just want to make sure that the retaining wall along the front property line isn't obstructing any views of pulling out of the driveway, because it comes down close enough that we want to make sure there was only a top of wall elevation, not a bottom, so I don't know how high that retaining wall is. So we just need to take a look at that.
Okay, what I did on that retaining wall, if you noticed, the last unit, it's on an angle. And it's set back probably 13 feet from the curb, so when your car pulls up, it doesn't affect the view. And if you notice, all the pine trees at the end of the wall for the last 15 feet, there's not a pine tree, because I didn't want to obstruct the view. And then on the left side, going down Ridge Street, Mike and I, over the last couple of months, we keep cutting back the foliage, so we have the sight distance. We didn't ignore it. Mike and I have been doing this for the last 2 years. So if you drive, you'll see a pathway that we keep cutting it back.
With the old home, if I'm not mistaken, the cars were pulling more on an angle.
Well, if you look there, I have,
You can't do it because you kind of.
well, they
now
pull,
with the new driver, you kind of will be pulling out perpendicular to the road, so you have a less time to react as you're pulling off out of the driveway.
well, before they had a back out.
Well, they're gonna. If they're gonna back out now, if the
They're not gonna back out.
Well, if the cars are parked in the parking port, they're gonna have to back out.
No, because if they're in the garage, they back out to the hammerhead.
What happens if there is a car in a hammerhead?
Well, I can't control that.
Well, then you're gonna back out. of
But
course.
before, everybody had to back out.
But
because they have
before,
12
the
cars.
cars were backing out and they were kind of going more in parallel with the line, with the traffic lane. Now they're going to be going more perpendicular to the traffic lane. And so I do like to have the traffic engineer give it.
The other thing is, when you look at,
Yeah.
just to jump on that point too, the sight lines, when you look at the original plat, this garage is now going to be looks to me like the closest structure to the curb. Like it's going to be,
Right.
it's going to be the most affected by that curve. Is there any way to push the garage back so it's not?
I want to disagree with you, because if we don't build a garage, they have to park there and go out that way anyway.
But it's the structure, it's the sight line. I'm looking at the sight lines and that curve. It's going to be more structure right around that curve.
It's the parking's the same. The parking never changed. That garage is set back. It parallel with the house.
John,
But
get back
before,
to
the driveway was more parallel to the front of the house.
Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. Look at the pictures before and look it after. That's all I can
Lou, I
say.
can't see, you can't see the
Look
driveway,
at,
yeah.
look at that house. That's beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, no, come on, no denying that.
issue. I mean,
I
this
made
is-
that point at the start.
I understand, Evie,
This is partly a safety issue too, because of
but
how.
it's not gonna change. It's not gonna change. If you say no to the garage, which I hope you don't, I'm still gonna sell a house in another month, and it is what it is. I'm trying to better the home with a two-car garage. If you say no, I say, okay, I sell the house, no garage. That's all. I'm trying to enhance the house.
And we are trying to work with you and see how can we alleviate a safety concern. And there is a safety concern, doesn't matter how you slice it,
I agree.
okay?
I agreed just now when you asked me.
I
But
mean, just because it existed before, doesn't mean we shouldn't try to the extent that we can to mitigate it now, if we can.
if you
If there's
can,
no
I
way
don't-
to do it.
I don't know how.
No way to do it,
I'm willing to do whatever, but I don't know how.
right? I mean, John, with the site distances and the engineering, I mean, what do you think we need?
Well, can the traffic consultant, they're not gonna change. It is what it is. I agree with Lou there. But is there something that we can do in terms of the features to I'm not proposing install the big mirrors, all right, to see where the traffic is coming. But is there something, I think Sarah said the retaining wall. Is that retaining wall blocking, making it worse than it has to be?
So in our memo, normally we don't get into the finite details at this point because I have to go to zoning, but I did feel strong enough to mention in our memo that we want to make sure that that retaining wall is not going to obstruct any of the site. So if the applicant can put some site distance lines on there, our traffic engineers will be looking at it. They were part of the original application, so they're very well versed in the situation out
But
there.
I don't want him just to come back with a no, because we all know that there is, but what can it be done? I'm looking more of a suggestion.
Really
what-
is, if
yeah.
anything.
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
what we're
if-
trying to do is mitigate a situation that's been bad from time zero.
Yes, I
Now
understand.
This is an opportunity to maybe try to mitigate it. If it can't be done, and we're told it can't be done, and we look at the site and it can't be done, then it can't be done. But if there's some creative idea that someone has that is feasible to implement, I think we should give it that shot, because we don't have to make the decision tomorrow. We're gonna schedule a public hearing. You have to go to the zoning board. We have like a month. I'm gonna take advantage of your
Yeah, I've
of
no
your-
problem.
and-
Come,
and
I'll show
see
you.
the site. So, we'll have time to look at this and consider whether or not there are any alternatives and, hash it out next month, whether it can be done.
And I'm sure we're gonna have to deal with some of these comments as a result of the public hearing also. Right?
We may, yes.
I think we
course.
will.
So-
Liz, I'm willing to do whatever, but I just have to say this. If I go to the zoning board and they say, come back, and then come to the planning board and come back, I'm not gonna build a garage. I have to sell the house. I started this project in 2010, okay? And I'm more than patient, but I rather, if you say no, it's no. I don't want to have another year on a garage. I'll just build a house and I'll leave it the way it is. I don't want to do that, but
But we cannot process an
No.
application and due diligence with the conditions that you are just outlining for us.
No, I'm not saying that.
That would not be fair to us
I'm gonna
or
go to
fair
zoning.
To the
No, you're-
public or the neighbors or anybody else.
yeah, I'll go to zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna zoning is gonna make a decision. They're not gonna bounce it back here. They're gonna either grant the variances or they're not. Now, if they don't grant the variances,
Then I can't
that's
build.
it.
That's it.
okay? If they do grant the variances and it comes back here, we have a month to do a little more due diligence on the site and see whether, there's some ideas that we can promote. I mean, the variances are the variances. There's
Yes.
nothing that can really be done about that.
Mhm.
But, maybe we can do something with the cards
Yeah.
that we've been dealt.
But I think the best thing is to come out and look. And,
Yeah.
Consultants are people. And I think if you come there and you look, you can see with your self.
I think it's a
And
good
and we
idea.
could maybe work something out together.
I think it's a good idea. I want to see it.
No problem. Thank you very much. Okay, bye
So,
now.
we-
But
we have two things to do.
did it come out nice though? Right?
Oh,
It did,
yeah.
Say that.
it did,
Beautiful.
it did, it did, it did.
Okay, we have two things. We need a referral to the ZBA and we need a public hearing scheduled, so.
And what were the two variances? I don't. One is the setback.
Of the parking court.
No, the setback of the building, because it's too close to the
And-
road, which
Oh, I see.
And,
Yeah,
and
see,
you
it's
are
a s-
within,
Scenic overlay.
The SROD.
no, that's what I'm talking about.
You're
What's
in
the other
You're
one?
in the scenic overlay
Yes.
and
The other one's a setback
Unenclosed
variance for
off-
the unenclosed
Yeah.
parking space.
Proposed driveway expansion will result in unenclosed off-street parking within 1.6 feet of the front line lot.
too close to the street.
Oh,
and-
okay.
And within the overlay,
Okay, so the overlay and the hammerhead, so that people could back out and pull out instead of backing out to Ridge Street.
I think that's it.
That's it?
Mm.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
well, one of the conditions may be that, you call a hammerhead, I call it open, a parking port, that there will be provisions, no parking in there at all. So that you can always make a U-turn and back out.
Yeah, listen,
Let me ask you a question. If you have two cars in the garage,
Every time the
Yep.
cop goes
and you had
by,
a,
gives them a
and
ticket.
you had a third car come in, that third car could turn around in the
Yes.
driveway, right?
yes,
So the problem would only exist if that fourth car comes in, because then there's no room for anyone to turn around.
there's no room. If you have two in the garage, one in the driveway, the one in the driveway could
Could
back
s-
to the hammerhead and go out.
And go
And you
out.
know what it is? If you have 4 parking spaces, there will be 4 cars.
You know what?
No
And
ifs or buts.
and I'm gonna bring up a point. When I was building over the saw pit property, when I built the apartment building there, and one of the people in the community said, what happens if gentleman says, I have 5 cars, and I live on the Westchester Country Club grounds, and what happens if the tenants have 5 cars? I said, they can't live here, because if they have 5 cars, they're making more than $30,000 a year. So how are they going to live in affordable housing if they only make 30 and have 5 cars? Something's wrong. So you could have as many cars. I can't. All of us, we can't predict that. But thank you very much again.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, bye now.
Where are we?
Sure. So the, you wanna get
Referral to
referral?
zoning board.
Referral.
Zoning,
yep, referring,
call me, we'll go. Thank you.
referring the site plan application to the Rybrook Zoning Board of Appeals for consideration of variances on North Ridge Road. Now therefore be it resolved for the reasons set forth in the written resolution, Planning Board hereby refers the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for determination on those variances listed therein.
Any comments on the resolution? Okay, if not, can I have a motion in a second?
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
yes.
Mr. Etner,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes.
Yes.
Sarah, go ahead. The
Can
public
I,
hearing.
can I just,
Yeah.
I just want to make it has nothing to do with anything except, I've been listening to these streaming programs of the village board and the planning board. And you cannot hear because nobody talks into the microphone. And there are only 2 microphones actually on this, whatever, dais, that seem to work. And that's the one that Chris Bradbury sits in and the one that the mayor sits in and the one that Jeff is sitting in right now. Those seem to be the only ones. But, nobody is, seriously. Now, there are people who can't attend, who don't have access to computers, who may have some interest in the village. And we're talking about a master plan. We're talking about a lot of things. People have a right to hear it.
Bring it up.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Somebody needs to do a testing.
Should. Anyway, we have let's finish up. Sarah? I think I don't think
Yes,
I-
we have a resolution to set the public hearing. Whereas the applicant has submitted applications for approval of a site plan and wetlands permit application involving the proposed construction of an attached garage and parking area on the property located at 261 North Ridge Street. Now therefore be it resolved, the Planning Board of the Village of Rybrook will hold a public hearing on November 9th, 2023 at 6:30 in Village Hall or in a virtual format as may be deemed depending on public health concerns for the above referenced application. Be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby directed to comply with section 250-40 of the Village Code regarding notification of the public hearing.
I have a motion and a second.
Moved.
Second. Hold on one second. Is he going in October for zoning, or is he going in November? If he's going in November, then it's after our plan.
I thought it was earlier.
Correct. Okay, zoning, sure.
But
It's
he-
usually the zoning is before us.
Yes.
Normally, in November would take place on the first Tuesday, as it always does, but the first Tuesday is.
It's Election Day, right,
That's what I meant.
right.
And so,
Uh,
as far as I know, I've not heard anything, because I'm liaison to that also, and I've not heard anything about date shift.
But even if the zoning board says no, we still have planning issues to address here.
Yeah, but then your public hearing dates are off.
Well, I mean, let's say we schedule a public hearing for next month, and worst comes to worst, the zoning board doesn't meet until after. So, we're going to know that, and we'll have to adjourn the public hearing.
Right,
until
we
the
would
zon-
have to,
Right, that's
similar
what-
to the
that's
other
the worst that can
application
happen.
that wasn't heard by the
Right.
ZBA.
So,
We just keep it open, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just schedule
Sarah
it.
said November the 6th, I think.
All right, so that's that's
I'm sorry,
3 days before us.
7th, so,
All right,
so there you go.
that's fine, it should work.
Election Day's the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Motion second, please.
Jeff seconded.
Jeff did it.
Who seconded?
Yep,
Jeff.
Jeff did it.
Who did motion? Amy,
Amy.
thank you. Mr. Grzan,
Yes.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Rettner.
Yes.
Wow, thank you. Mr. Richmond,
yes,
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Goodman.
yes. Wow. That's,
Mine's working.
there we go, okay.
Everyone is working.
Yeah, but they're not using it, so.
Yes,
We got the- Well, you're not gonna be like that. Anyway.
All right.
Okay, the next topic is the comprehensive plan. I think you recommended this, Don, and when I looked through the comprehensive plan, I also saw the summary of recommendations at the end. I noticed that the copy that we got was two-sided, which at least for me made it sort of difficult to see everything, so I took that section, summary of recommendations, and I just distributed it to all of you, just because I thought it was a good summary of what the plan recommended.
I think Mike made the.
He did.
This is the whole document.
He
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Everybody has it.
Yeah.
I thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just for the sake of ease, I just distributed the summary of recommendations, which I thought were very comprehensive, but also
Yeah.
limited enough.
I included, well, I started with the introduction of the vision and goals, which is what we
Right.
had talked about, and then it skipped to chapter 13. That's the land use part.
Right.
I had an
Right.
opportunity to call the chairman today, and I expressed to him my view. I thought this was whoever did this document's compliments.
Yes.
I thought it was a very well-prepared
Yes,
document.
absolutely.
And you just have to spend time and read it.
Yep.
Took me 2 days, but I did it.
So, yeah, I think you were involved in the development of
I
this
was
stuff.
involved, not in the final committee. I was involved in the group that was pre that committee,
Right.
that came up with all of the things that we would be looking for.
Right.
I have a question for the council. the plan, board adopted this, of course.
Yes.
And I can tell that, you know, over the number of the years since number of the things have been implemented. Some of the code changes were undertaken, and the thing most important that was undertaken was the rezoning of the
Yeah.
country club, golf course.
Mhm.
Does the board have a schedule or some sort of a plan of implementing some of the remaining recommendations in this plan?
Not that I know of, but I think what we were looking for was feedback from your board
Mm-hmm.
as to what, if any, changes you would make, if you could, in the comprehensive plan, and that's what we would look at.
I think almost we are here deciding what comes first, chicken or the egg, so to speak. I think the point that I made to the chairman this afternoon was that at least from my own perspective, David, that we almost need to have some sort of a direction. In what direction does the village want to proceed? What do we want to do? How do we want to look 10, 15 years from today? What are our objectives? What are our goals? And there are competing requirements here that work against each other here. No question about it. And somebody's going to have to decide, you know, in terms of, before we start addressing some changes in the code, or how we want to modify the code, if we want to do that, what is it that we want to be?
I
Well,
think
that's in the
if I
goals.
recall correctly from the last planning board meeting, what we talked about, or what you talked about, was the fact that since this was adopted, both hotels have closed. We've seen dramatic climate change.
Yeah.
And so a great deal of this may no longer be relevant,
That's correct.
or at least may need some change. It was,
With all due respect, I have a different point of view on the very subject. The very fact that the two hotels are closed,
Gonna be two.
it gives us an opportunity now, if you wish, to make the changes, how we want to look, or how do we want to proceed going forward? What do we want to be developed on these properties?
I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying is that this plan did not anticipate the hotels closing. And so now we do have this opening, if you will, and so it is a question of, do we need to make any further changes in the comprehensive plan?
Because
so
one of
so
the
we can do things with these very large tracts of land, which normally don't exist in the village of Rybrook.
even 10 years ago, the people that wrote this, they came to a conclusion, Rybrook is built out. In effect, you can have a couple hundred more units, that's about it. But, you know, so the focus of this, as I was reading it, has been on the office space, commercial space, OB, CP, PUDs, if you wish. Now we would, and you know, they make some, you know, observations and some suggestions that maybe some of these districts ought to be overlapped, combined, eliminated, streamlined, if you wish. And the very fact that the two hotels have closed gives us that opportunity.
Well, they,
Really does.
yeah, well, I mean, they closed, but they're private, the land is privately owned, and they're going to probably be redeveloped.
That's
And-
right.
And we had discussed, or will discuss, what's going on in Doral Greens and Arrowwood and in the.
Remember, we're not
development.
supposed to call it Doral anymore.
Right, well, it's just for the sake of everyone understanding where it is, but.
Anderson Hill
but-
Road.
But, I mean, you know, that is going to be a big project where some consideration should be paid to whether or not that development is consistent with the way we would want, what are the needs of the village? Is it going to serve a certain need? We talked in very general terms, and I think the potential applicant was very receptive to it, is much more of an interaction in their providing, what kind of services that can they provide to the community in consideration of our largesse as well. And I think that gets to the heart of what sort of village do we want to live in? What sort of facilities do we want available to our residents? And how the development of these properties can enhance that, advance that sort of goal.
One of,
Go ahead.
well, one of the goals was under community resources, and it talked about enhancing the quality and availability of community services while respecting limited resources.
Right.
And the policy was to promote community identity through enhanced services, facilities, and other community resources. Cost effectiveness, increase parks, and we've done a good job there. But I think we've met it to a degree, but I do not think we have met enough community-wide activities, inclusive of indoor facilities to accommodate activities, teen centers. We have the senior center. I think the vision has to be for more. To build on what we have now basically is still the schools, and it's still a bedroom community. It still does not have the capability of a Scarsdale I use Scarsdale only because it's comparable in size and things like that. It also may not have the money that Scarsdale has. But that's one area that I feel has not been met. I think it has been begun to be worked on. Let's put it that way. Mobility was another one, which I found, in my opinion, we have not met at all. And that was to improve traffic circulation while minimizing impacts on the environment and community character. And I don't think that I don't think we can, frankly, do much more. I think it may have been a very nice goal to want to promote other than automobile travel here, but you have to be pretty hard pressed to think about riding your bike to the railroad station or riding your bike down Ridge Street on your way to buy groceries and stuff. We do not have any real means of public transportation in the immediate area. And I think that is not, it does not meet the spirit of what this goal intended so far. That's under the goals. But I do think, in reading a number of these things, that some of the things are partially met. It takes a long time. I don't think 10 years is when you begin something and you're relatively becoming saturated in your development, we don't have a city center. We don't. And it's to everybody, wanted to envision Rye Ridge as the city center, but it truly is not. There aren't places in Rye Ridge, such as we used to have a bowling alley there. That was a community resource. That was something that everybody could use.
We used to have a movie theater.
There was a movie theater. There was more then than we have now.
Yes.
And so I don't feel that we've done enough to sit down, perhaps, and talk with the Rye Ridge Development Center and see what their future, what they envision their thing as. Is it only going to be shopping and restaurants? That's not necessarily a draw for having people move here.
I think that the developers should be proposing the design consistent with our code, with our plans. I think in some instances, we have done just the opposite. We have taken the effort to tweak our code to accommodate the developers.
I agree with you.
And I don't think that's the right approach.
Yeah, I agree.
Except we're not dealing with public lands that the village can do whatever it wants with. I mean, you're dealing with commercial landlords, that have their own bottom line to be concerned about. They have their own interests. And I think that the way things have just evolved in this region and in this country is that if you own something, you're jealous about all the control that you have. Now, we can have priorities, we can create incentives, but we can't dictate.
No.
You can't say this only a bowling alley. We want a bowling alley. You're going to
Right,
put a
no,
bowling
I
alley.
just used
But-
that as an
but-
example.
But no, and I think it's an interesting point of view in that the village, just like the U.S. government, if there is a possibility of creating incentives to encourage the type of development that we want, then that could maybe push the ball forward. It's not maybe the best, most ideal thing. It's not like condemning land and turning it into an open space, but there may be things that we can provide to commercial landlords that incentivize them to put in a movie theater or put in a bowling alley or reduce parking or increase open space or something like that. And I don't know whether we as a village have used the tools that we're capable of using to create those incentives. I mean, it's a very unfair comparison, but the city of Atlanta created a lot of incentives for the entertainment and movie industry.
Right.
Now it's one of the hubs that a movie producer will go to produce a film. It never existed before, but they created tax incentives in order to cause companies to consider it. And I don't know what resources we have to be able to create those incentives, which could be the problem. And if that's the case, then that's the case. But if there is a way for us to do that sort of thing, and we can align those incentives with what our goals as a village are, then we have a better shot of achieving what we want to achieve in terms of development.
Well, it comes under land use,
Can I
too.
chime in a little bit here? One, I question how much any of this is relevant to a planning board, because it really is a zoning board that would condition development variances on community benefits. But you speak to
That's not true.
what
Well, remember, we're being charged with the task of coming up with recommendations to the Board of Trustees about whether or not the comprehensive plan has achieved its objectives or not, or what additional things we would recommend that should be
I
considered.
understand, and forgive me, I get a little offended by the idea of anybody regulating who a commercial landlord should rent to. But I'm on a board in New Rochelle called the Retail Task Force. I was appointed to it by the mayor of New Rochelle. New Rochelle is a city that's undergoing a tremendous revitalization. There's 10,000 apartments either just completed or currently under construction. Beautiful glass towers, 28 stories tall. It's a totally revitalized downtown from a residential perspective. The commercial hasn't caught up to it. The city allocated money really to this board that I'm on to kind of design a more uniform commercial storefront, to kind of promote leasing to more national tenants, to generally rebuild to the downtown so that the retail is on par with the new residential. If that really is a goal here to have more community benefits
That's right.
in the commercial, I would suggest following New Rochelle's lead and allocating a budget. I can't imagine Rybrook has the type of budget New Rochelle has to do something like that, but that's how they're doing it. That's how numerous communities where I've been a part of developments have done it. They create some type of financial incentive to developers to create an aesthetic and an occupancy that the community would want.
But that's the whole point. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a
Right.
city of New Rochelle, or you want to be a urban community of?
No, I want to be the furthest thing from
New
New
Rochelle
Rochelle.
is an
But-
urban
But
community.
I'm speaking
Right.
to, you were talking about what kind of incentives, I'm saying what I've seen that other communities have done. Rockville Center, where I've done a lot of developments, that is a community much more similar to Rybrook.
Right.
Rockville
Rockville
Center
Center.
in Long Island.
Yeah, no, that has a
and-
large commercial area. if
They,
I'm
they
not
have
mistaken.
more of a structure downtown, but it's much more of a spread out suburban community.
It's a city.
This is a
It's
staccato,
certain-
our
it's
village
a
is a
village.
staccato village. It's staccato.
Well,
There's
Rockville Center's a
something here
village
and
also,
something
but-
there
Rybrook
and
is
something.
known, at least I bought here
Okay.
35 years ago, because it was a one-family residential community with a good school system. That's what attracted
I think
me.
that's why everybody's
That's
here.
why- that's
Which is why I'm confused why there's conversation about commercial uses.
Because
serve
we're
as
talking
a
about
community
land
benefit.
use. We're
We
talking
have
about
coup- we have
land
couple
use.
zones, districts where there is a commercial properties.
And if you read the comprehensive plan, you'll see what the intent was to look at every aspect that you could possibly, to envision what the village could become. What did we want? How big did we want it? How much did we want? What we didn't want? It's a very good document. It's a really, really good document. Some of it is not realistic for us. Some of it certainly is. I mean, it's come to pass.
Well, one thing that maybe we could look at, if the New York Times agreed on this too, they wrote an article September 2021.
Right.
And they said everybody's here for the schools and the location,
Right.
which is what we were just talking about, right?
Sure.
But what are the big developments that have come in? 900 King Street, 230 senior units.
Right.
Next door to, we're not going to call it Doral, I looked, 400 senior units adjacent to the Doral property at SUNY. 400 senior. We are going to be changing the nature of the community, not to have too many school children. School enrollment is down 15% in the last 10 years.
But those are very exclusive, expensive place,
Right.
senior residences.
Kingsfield, the same thing. Exclusive. Luxury, we're attracting luxury
Right.
with small number of children, probably. I don't know. The nature is changing. I'm not sure there's much we can do about it, except if people are coming for the schools, and the schools isn't even really part of our jurisdiction here, right?
No, but
we're talking the village and the schools are always separate.
Yes,
Yet
but
the biggest tax driver is what's
revenue
been going on with the
is
schools.
dependent very much on getting the draw into the village.
Right. The biggest non-residential commercial thing has been the $45 million invested in the school.
Right.
Which hopefully is going to attract more
Mm-hmm.
students. But I don't know. If we're attracting all these school age
But
kids,
we
where
all-
are they?
One thing that I think I mentioned this to Rob today, there's economics.
Right.
And we never talk about the economy, but it's a
Right.
major factor,
Right.
unfortunately, in the planning.
Right.
Because right now, and I pointed that out today, very fact that the biggest user of the taxation is the school board,
Right.
or they manage, or they not use it. But yet they have very little or no input how those tax revenues are arrived at. Okay? Because tax revenues are arrived, but basically the buildings that are on the property within the town, one way or the other.
Yeah, but I think to Don's point, and I don't know the whole tax intricacies of those negotiations, but we've heard a little bit about some of the negotiations. Do these senior living communities really pay a lot of school tax? Probably not, right?
Probably not. I don't.
It depends what the assessment is. They don't use the school,
But I think
hopefully.
they come to pilot programs.
Yes,
and-
they
and-
probably
and-
Yeah.
probably do. Yeah.
But for instance, and we're probably not supposed to talk specifics, but if a developer wants to redevelop a property and he says, okay, I'm doing X amount of commercial, and then I'm thinking about X amount of residential, would you rather have senior or would you rather have non-senior? The schools might say,
We
we
want
want tax revenue
that-
but no kids.
Right.
But what does the character of the community want? Do we want more, do we want to have more families and attract more families?
Diversity, I would say.
Well, you said something before that the school enrollment.
It's down.
No, I'm sorry. When my daughter graduated, it was 45 kids in the graduating class.
No, I'm talking the last 10 years.
Even in the last 10 years, the school population has doubled.
No.
No.
I've got the
no,
numbers
no,
right
no,
here.
that's not true. That isn't true.
We are
The
what,
elementary
we are
school is
over
not-
1,000. We are over.
The
we are
classes,
over
I mean, I have
1,000
two,
students.
we have elementary school kids. The classes
Yeah,
are down.
that's where the population is down.
It was 1489 in 2013-14, 1,489. This 2021-22, 1,276. It's down 220 kids out of 1,500.
I'm not disputing the numbers. You're reading them.
Yeah.
Then why did we expand the school buildings over
No,
the last?
I think we modernized it, but.
No, we expanded.
Just
it.
one
Why?
thing
We
you must keep
expanded
in
Ridge
mind.
Street for sure.
There are two school systems in the village of Rybrook.
Right.
Yes,
Fort- that's
good
right.
point.
Right.
Good point.
So it's nice that you're all focusing on the Blind Brook school system, but there is another school system
Right.
in this village.
Yes.
And something,
And
right.
They
that-
are
right.
not necessarily looking for
Good
more
point.
students.
Good point.
I think the Blind Brook school population has constantly increased from year to year since I have been here.
I think more the pot.
David's
Then you got to look to housing and at what the availability of housing, and housing costs, and that's changing.
Yeah.
That's changing. People can't afford to come here. You're going to lose kids. You know, it is never this or that. It is, everything is the shades of gray because it is. There are so many variables, and you can only look at what you can look at realistically. You probably want to factor in or think about the other things, but you can only deal with what's practical for your surroundings and what you can do about that, and the regional, I mean, with thought to the region as well. There eventually are going to be regional schools because one school system won't be able to support itself by itself if we're going in the direction we're going now. The economy is changing. People can't afford $1 million homes. And some of the homes that are on sale for $1 million and more probably aren't worth $1 million or more, but that's what the market bears.
There is not a home in Rybrook right now that's under $1 million. I don't care whether it's a tear down. You still have to pay $1 million for it.
Well, I mean, and then relating to housing is the issue of how the village envisions its housing stock over the, I mean.
The commercial.
I mean, you and I had this conversation, John, which is it single-family homes? Are we really
Right.
dealing with the other sorts of properties where you have less land, it's more multifamily homes in a smaller area, where you would focus on
Right.
more urban-type facilities that
right.
allow people to walk the places
Right.
and not have to drive.
That's all in here.
Right.
That's all in.
Exactly. It is. It's an issue that came up here, but I don't think. I mean, part of the problem is that Rybrook, like all communities, evolves sort of organically. It's very difficult to have a 5-year plan or a 20-year plan and say we're going to end up like that, because you can't legislate who's going to come in and who's going to come out and what your demographics is going to look like. I wish the demographic information supplied in the comprehensive plan I thought was really interesting, except it stopped at like 2010. It would be really interesting to see that demographics to the present, and then we would actually have an idea of how the village has changed. I mean, part of it is that the comprehensive plan is guided by the demographics.
Exactly.
And so the analysis that was done on the demographics was very telling as far as, you know, do we have enough homes? How many children are we going to be accommodating in the school system? I really don't know now.
That would
And-
be a recommendation to the board to do it,
it's sort of like-
to extend its demographic study.
Right. It's sort of like what you did, Don.
It's 13 years.
Except, you know, dealing with more variables. I mean, you're looking at the number of school children maybe in the last, like, how far back did you go?
Well, I do have 2,000. So 20 years ago, there was 1,200.
Right.
Now there's 1,276, 20 years later.
I mean,
So we've increased 75
75
students
students in 20
in
years?
20 years.
I mean, that's not a
22
village where
22
you
years.
have a growing
David's
young
point, that's just
population.
Blindbrook.
That's
I'm
stagnant.
sorry, that's Blindbrook.
That is stagnant.
That's
That
what,
is right.
two-thirds of the students or more, 70%?
I don't know what the percentage is, but you've also got to keep in mind, you mentioned 900 King. We didn't start out seeking to have a senior
Right.
development there.
Right.
Somebody bought the property, and this is how they thought they could make a dollar.
Exactly.
The alternative was knock the whole thing down and build lots and lots and lots of
Houses.
townhouses.
Yeah.
But, one, that would make traffic on King Street truly nightmarish.
Right.
And also would then potentially flood the school system.
Well, but I
Right,
think
but we could make that same mistake on the next opportunity, or maybe it's not a mistake. We could make that same choice on the next thing to say.
But we don't control what private people do with what they want to do with their property. We can only make it transactional, saying, if you want to do that, this is what we want out of it. Otherwise, we
no,
won't make it
I
easy for you to
disagree
build.
with that. I disagree with that. I think just because you own the piece of property, piece of land, you can do with it whatever you want to do. I mean, that's the whole point of the zoning and the building code and whatnot. So yes, you can decide what they can build. If the property is vacant right now, and if you go through the proper procedure and you develop the zoning for that particular area that stands the law and can withstand the challenge, that owner is gonna have to build what you have told him that he can build.
But if I use 900 again, I think it's something like 100 townhouses could have been built there. It's 17 acres.
But I mean,
And that's so,
But was it zoned for the single-family homes?
that's the current zoning.
All right.
Current zoning is they could build townhouses. They had to get an exception to build this because nobody wanted 100 townhouses there.
So there's 230 seniors that it's now,
But we made it that they had to be over 65. We really wanted to minimize the impact on traffic,
right.
school, and everything else. We
Right.
really were quite deliberate about that.
But see, that's the interesting thing. We think our marquee, why come to Rybrook? For the schools and the location, except we don't want you if you're here for the schools and the location.
But we also don't want the empty nesters such as myself moving out of Rybrook just because
There's no place to go.
But growth can make the economics of schools and anything else beneficial. Sometimes growing communities have an easier time funding
But you
things,
see, if you
right?
give someone like me an alternative as to where I can live within the village of Rybrook, my house then goes on the market. My house never goes on the market if I don't see any alternative.
So you're saying the seniors is a good thing because it gives you an alternative to stay in town? Or-
Yeah, I think so, because I'd like to stay in Rybrook.
I think Matt was making a good point about you can't tell, and what David just said, you can't tell a commercial developer what to do. But if you want community property or uses like a pool would be great, right? Then let's set up tax incentives. Like the only way to do that is to offer tax incentives to somebody to build something. I mean, has that ever worked? Have we ever done that?
We have, and it was so unanimously turned down. People didn't want it. We did, this is, how many years ago were we talking about the
Falls?
pool?
Was that the Hidden
What was
Falls
the,
one?
yeah, what was the
What?
story?
Was that Hidden Falls where they were gonna do the pool?
I don't remember. It was somewhere
It
along
was
that
right
way.
when I moved in. I moved
Yeah.
in 1989.
Yeah, we've gone the route of a community center, a pool,
It was shouted down.
hockey rink.
When was the last time that the big
Right.
development?
Then that's not what we
That's it.
wanted.
Right.
Was
Well, it was shouted down. I remember,
it's
the
where-
one thing I
where it
remember
was.
very clearly is somebody complaining that the tax increase necessary to finance a community pool would interfere with his beer money. And then that's when I walked out of the room and I realized this isn't going anywhere.
Everything
But,
wants to pay.
you know, there were a couple large projects, at least since I have been on the board, that have been developed. What, other than the taxation, what did the community get from any one of those projects for the community benefit as a whole, for the citizens of the community? Like, Amy said, we have no places to
No,
go.
we lost. We
Get
actually
some
lost.
public land.
We lost Doral when we lost the driving range. We lost that golf
Yes.
course. We lost the tennis courts. We lost the pool, like the indoor
Right,
pool.
the
we
pool,
lost.
right.
Yes,
The
yes.
fitness program, you know,
Yeah.
everything.
And this is
A
what
lot.
I have been saying all along. You know, when you have these large upcoming projects, I always believe we should look that, okay, fine, you're gonna build this, but there is gonna be something here for the community. You're gonna create some advantage for the community in addition to just paying taxes.
Well, that's what I was
Which
talking
somehow
about in terms
there's
of
never
it being
enough.
transactional.
I'm sorry?
That's what I was talking about in terms of it being transactional. If you want this, this is what we want in return.
And it's also what I was talking about when I was saying that zoning boards condition variances.
It's taxes are tough because the school, we don't control the school tax. We don't
Right.
control
Matt,
the county
if-
tax.
Right,
If
exactly.
you
We control
change
a
the
very
zone,
small
if you
piece of
change
the
the code,
taxes,
then the
which is
zoning
the
board
village
does not have to
tax.
condition it.
Nobody's worried about the village tax.
They don't have to approve it.
But I guess
Yeah, but like for instance, when Red Roof was built,
Yes.
I think one of the conditions was that the developer built that second baseball field.
Great.
That's my whole point is
That's
it,
ridiculous.
is- it should be transactional and variances should be conditioned.
I think it's very difficult, just in responding to John's point, to establish a code, a zoning code, that sort of marks out your vision, and you've become very exclusive in what projects you'll allow to be built or not be built. And your response is, well, if you can't meet the zoning code, then go away.
But
And
not
the-
that rigid, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the danger with that is that you end up with a lot of underdeveloped, underused properties because you can't find those developers that actually want to spend the time to conform their project to a zoning code.
But, you know, but that's precisely what Plan Rybrook says. You kind of think in terms of a mixed use.
The PUDs have worked extremely well.
Yes.
It seems like that has attracted development. in
The what?
The PUDs.
Yes.
Yes,
The PUDs is where all the action's been.
Yeah.
But, you
Except
know,
for rehabbing houses,
But
right?
this analysis points out that we have a lot of inconsistency within the office space with the commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the areas that I believe we should be focusing. You know, take the recommendations in the plan, and can we make some concrete recommendation to the board with regard to the office space and the commercial space? Can we make some changes? Can we combine them? Can we eliminate certain portions? Give the developer an opportunity to come in there and do a mixed use. Right now, it's hard to do.
Where are you saying? for
In,
this?
in the office, OB zones, CP1, CP2, CP, OS zones, there are about 5, 6, 7 zones.
But is there not many of those left, right? Like Kingsfield, instead of expanding the office park, they put in 100 units of luxury housing. So the Kingsfield, like offices, the same thing on 900 King Street. There was an office building, and now there's gonna be senior housing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think the office space thing is shrinking, which is,
Well, when you talk about mixed residential commercial use, you're really talking about a town center.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about commercial buildings that have a residential component. And it's only sort of in the Rye Ridge area that I see that as being, feasible.
right.
I don't see it
In
anywhere
other
else.
areas of the village, and the question is, does the village want that? If you look at a Bronxville that's downtown.
right.
Can you envision that up on King Street, if those two office buildings go?
No, but I can envision
No,
it down by the Rye Ridge Shopping
Well,
Mall.
why does it have to be down there?
I'm sorry?
How come only down there, how come not up here?
And please remember what Kingsfield was not supposed to be what it is now. We
Right.
wanted to build 4 hockey rinks,
Right,
okay, which would have created a lot of commercial potential.
right.
And that, you would have thought, we were basically saying, and we'd like to bring in the plague.
But I don't think that was gonna go anyplace. That
People
got
were
shut
worried,
down
people
very
were worried
quickly.
about the controls of.
Yeah, but David,
yeah.
you actually, I think, saw some virtue in that, in sort of attracting commercial development. It would have changed the,
I
Change
thought the hockey rink idea was a great idea. I thought, just something different, something for the community. We would have had public ice skating rinks, but
Yeah.
the public didn't want it.
No, they didn't.
Well, I guess we're sort of debating a new comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
The question is this plan good enough is this good enough, or do we want to sort of plot out the next 10 or 15 years?
Look, I think it outlines the areas that we need to be looking at.
Yeah.
I think the recommendations are very, very good in pointing towards those issues that should be considered in a
And
comprehensive.
the question is, how much of that have we done?
And the question is really, how much of that, when you're looking at 10 years from now or 15 years from now, it comes to a fundamental vision of what is the village, what do you want the village to look like? And even the discussions that John and I have had is a huge, huge difference between envisioning the village as a single-family home focused
Right.
community, or a mixed or community with multifamily homes where you're encouraging a greater population and a lot more young people and facilities to meet the needs of multifamily home communities. It's a very different type of vision.
And I don't believe that if you poll the people within the village, that they will be in favor of your second option that you described there.
Probably not.
And I will be the first one say, no, I don't want that.
Right. But then you go down a particular.
However, there
route.
are certain sectors of the village where that may be applicable.
Right.
And, we always talk about the community, that we don't have a center for that area, I'm telling you, I think there's a lot of good work here went into this, and all we need to do is continue working with this document.
Yes, I
and
agree.
focus on a specific area, and I don't know whether we can discuss specific parcels of land, but I think if there are specific parcels of land that are gonna be developed within the next few years, I think we need to look at it.
Yes.
What is it that we want? We by all means want the property to be developed, but how do we want to develop?
The only two significant pieces of property that I can see being developed in the next few years are the old Doral Arrowwood
And Hilton.
and the old Hilton.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
What's interesting is this master plan just assumed they'd be there forever, as is. That's what I found quite interesting, is it didn't say, someday, this hotel might not be economically feasible, or it may not be economically feasible to run a golf
And
course.
But if you read, I didn't get that message.
No, it said, for instance, the golf course is always going to be open area because it's a golf course. Oh, really? Why? Who owns the
No,
golf?
they could sell it.
But-
At
But
any
it
time.
doesn't say that. It contemplates throughout.
That's why this.
It's
That's
gonna be
why
open
we
area,
changed-
open area, open
That's
area.
why the zoning was changed when it was changed.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
at Doral.
Yeah, but.
Has that has that golf
oh.
course been zoned open? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so.
That has not
No.
been zoned open.
And yet throughout here, it says, guess what? It's recreation. It's open to the public. It's,
Well,
you know,
also, there is a conception of what to do about the Blindbrook Country Club. I mean, that was like
Right.
create
Yes.
either a new
Right.
open space for.
Well,
for
that's
the
what
Blindbrook-
I'm talking
Well,
about, the
what-
zoning
what-
of-
what
at
would have
Blindbrook.
thought That would have
Right.
ended, and that would have become open space that we had to deal with, and that, whoever's running the Blindbrook Country Club is still running it, and it's still what it's always been.
But we did rezone it, hopefully for our children and grandchildren someday,
Someday.
all right?
That was definitely.
And I think was
yes.
done with a lot of thought behind
Right.
it.
I think
There
too,
was,
though,
and
where this
there
thing has
was,
been
yes.
super helpful, I would think, is one of the things that comes through is flooding is a big concern, a big concern, a big concern. Now, maybe the village didn't do a lot of what was contemplated here, but they did a lot of other stuff that came along.
Yes.
They always knew, though, that what we care about is trying to reduce flooding.
We're doing a great deal on stormwater management, without a doubt.
So, a lot of stuff, I mean, even if, like I said, the remedies that, if it laid out 10 or 12 remedies, maybe even if they only did 2, they did 10 or 12 others that weren't on here. Is that right, Mike? Or did you just kind of follow this script?
No, actually, we have other documents and studies on the shelf that we've been implementing, and as long as I've been here, we've implemented almost a dozen different projects. We currently got 3 projects in the hopper. We got partial funding on one project, for example. It's like a $20 million project. We got maybe $12 million on it. So we've implemented just about everything that was outlined in the study from a number of years ago. So, yeah, we are,
Would it be helpful to have a blueprint going forward, or are we sort of getting as far as we can get soon?
there's internal discussion about revisiting the overall village and potentially restudying the buffers, the wetlands, everything to see, because in 20 years, 18, 15 years, things change.
Right.
So there's some conversation about that.
Now, that too would dovetail with, if you're talking about two big undeveloped properties or redeveloped properties, one of them we know is abutting the creek, right? Or both of them. Is Hilton abutting the creek also?
No, but there's drainage from there.
I mean, that area, on all the flood studies I've seen, that SUNY Purchase and the adjoining property, which is the Doral, whatever it's called, Greens, is always pointed out as, if you're gonna do something significant to ameliorate flooding in one spot, that's the spot. Now, maybe again, developer doesn't wanna hear that.
Well, it was across the street also, because there are tons of wetland areas and springs and
Right.
lots of things throughout that part of Anderson Hill Road, both on the right and left going.
I mean, at the very minimum, given that the 100-year flood has increased, the flood maps have probably, I don't know, the flood zones there are probably enlarged somewhat. So at the very minimum, any developer coming in, we gotta make sure their footprints aren't great for 10 years ago, they're great for 10 years from now, sort of
Right.
thing.
I was going to say, when the comprehensive plan was drafted, 100-year rainstorm meant it occurred every 100 years, not every other year, which is what we're now going through.
Right.
Climate change has drastically affected.
Right.
Right, well, I see
What are
DEC, New York State DEC just did a study that covered our area that actually projects ahead. With sea level rising, they've projected ahead, what would that mean for how much extra you would need to do in these various communities, including ours? So somebody's already studied it, right, Mike? We already know.
Oh, sure,
we
Westchester
already know-
2000.
We already know
Studied
that
it.
as much as
Westchester
we've done, we
2000,
gotta keep
yeah.
doing more, yeah.
But I think we, if we try to buy the apple all at once, we're not gonna wind up eating it. So I think what we need to do, focus on a particular area, and my recommendation would be that we look at the large parcels of land that are, as trustee said, are probably gonna be developed within the next 3, 4, 5 years, and look at the plan and see what do we want to do in terms of what do we want the community to look at it. Does that plan takes us in that direction? And if it doesn't take us in that direction, what changes should we make, or what changes should we implement that they're recommending here? And make that recommendation to the board. I don't think we can make a recommendation to the board on the whole plan as a whole. I don't think that would too many consultants, too many people, too many meetings, too many dollars to do that. I think we should do it one step at a time. I think Blind Brook rezoning was a prime example, and I think we should look now at the other areas.
How does that work in the law? I mean, is there such a thing as studying sort of an amended comprehensive plan with an eye on certain parcels? Or is that like not allowed?
Well, we're just making recommendations to the Board of Trustees, who's really the only board that
I'm
can
just
act
saying,
on it.
just a legal question. Is it
Yeah.
like precedential to say, we're only studying, how come we're only studying two parcels versus?
No, I think we're afforded some flexibility on this, and
It's land use. It doesn't say this land or your entire, it doesn't name the specific. It doesn't say whether it's general or whether it's specific.
right, and I don't want to. I mean, look, our responsibility is to make recommendations. We're not doing an entire study.
No.
We're not retaining consultants to figure all this out. I think we're trying to put our heads together and to identify
It's brainstorming.
issues. It's brainstorming. And so I think what I'm going to try to do between now and next meeting is maybe with Robert's help and Sarah's help, is maybe put together some sort of document that we can talk about that summarizes the issues that we have brought up here so that we can focus on them. I think there's some interesting thinking going on about, Matt talks about incentives. I think John is talking about specific parcels that we should be concerned about and how that affects development. Amy, you're talking about community resources and the development of a downtown, whether that's even feasible or not feasible. And I think that we should sort of put all this together in one place, that all of us can consider it and decide how we want to flesh it out. Because it is a very nice piece of work, but it's overwhelming. I mean, there's no way you can make any sense of it.
And
just
I
by-
have said, and I'm gonna repeat it, and I've been saying this for a long time. I think I'd be a failure to myself, and that's all that matters to me. If we do another large development, and there is nothing that's community gains as a whole other than additional tax money, I think it's a failure.
I agree.
We have need in every area to get the community together. And this is an opportunity. And we work with the builder, even if it means some sort of an incentive or whatnot. The builder has a much better opportunity to do something than we do.
Right. I think that's, and I think we've talked about that, David. I mean, I think that's certainly with some of within the, what's going on at Doral Greens and Arrowwood. I think we've talked about that in incentivizing it. But something, what sort of confuses me, getting back to the pool and the hockey rinks, is that does the community really want what we think they want? And this is where I think that creating incentives to have more of to give the community resources is a great idea. And I thought a pool was a great idea. I mean, when I came back to Rye Brook, the first thing Carol, who grew up here, said, a community pool would be great.
It's one of the things when we first moved here,
Right,
I
and
had
then-
asked about too.
And then look, the community didn't really want it. Some
I don't
people
think they
wanted it.
didn't want it. They didn't want it where it was. I think it had to do with who would have access to the pool.
Of course.
That was much
But-
more what
If
was.
part of a goal is to bring a community
Together, right.
then does that even require doing new things with land? For example, I was an impetus for creating the men's softball league that formed last year. Nothing had to be built. All I had to do was write a bunch of letters to the rec department. But you got 9 teams, tons of guys all over Rye Brook. People love it. I think it was a great thing for bringing the community together. It didn't require $1 of community money, and it didn't require any type of land use change.
I also was talking with somebody during the week who mentioned pickleball and the fact that they had tried very hard to get some pickleball courts here. It's a rage now. It's a national rage.
It is a good
Why can't we do
opportunity
that?
to
We've
do-
got tennis
yeah.
courts. Why can't we take a tennis court and make it a pickle? During the summer, the tennis courts on Pine Ridge are barely used. Why? It's a waste. And from my point of view,
Basically, what I'm kind of saying is,
you can do it.
what I found in other communities is that if you're really trying to build something, the only way to do it is to create an incentive. It doesn't mean that you need to build something. You can create a sense of community, right? I think Rye Brook has a great sense of community the way it is, and you can do it without spending $1.
That is true. That certainly is true. You have enough people wanting something, you put the pressure on to get it done.
No, but when you're dealing with the development, you have a practical issue to deal with.
Yeah, with large parcels,
And
yes.
And if we
Yes.
want, and I think in thinking of these transactions as being transactions, the issue is, what do we want? What does the village want from this? Do we want more open space, or do we want access to pickleball courts or
One of the
I
things
think
they did
if
originally was
I can
do a
interrupt.
survey. They sent out a survey to
wanna
every
interrupt.
household here before this happened. And people would complete, and surprisingly, a lot of people completed the survey.
I remember.
That was how this all began.
On the last project, I remember challenging the mentality of the developer. You know, there was an X number of units, and then there is an X number of the affordable units. And there was a community center for the project, including the pool. And I raised the question, I said, can the children from the affordable units use the pool?
That was Kingfield.
And I didn't want to say it. And you know what the answer was? No. And my comment was, he said, how are you going to explain that to two 10-year-olds that are playing on the street together,
We all felt
and the
that way.
time comes to go to the pool? One can go to the pool, the other one cannot.
That
Because
changed.
the means.
Well, that was a big issue in New York City. They called it the pour door.
They changed it, though.
It's right, and New York City changed its, whole development procedures because they had, affordable housing minimums, but they didn't want an intermixing.
So you develop it,
Yeah.
if you want to build a pool, all right, build it for the, for the community as a whole, not just for your tenants.
I think Sarah had something to
Yeah.
say.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, Robert. What I was going to say when you were talking about public participation. So one of the big components of if you do actually dive into updating the comprehensive plan and adopting a new one, a lot has happened in the last 10 years since you did your last one. So the public engagement portion has come a long way. And it's not just a paper survey that goes out to the community members that come back and we look at a few boxes that have been checked. There's an extensive community outreach that's done now. We have things like Google Maps where people can pin on a map, what would you like to see on this property? Or we've found that people, because they can engage at home on their computer, log into a website about a comp plan, they're more open to telling you what they would like and what they would like to see. And you might find out that a lot of people's opinions have changed post-COVID. Climate change, flooding that people have had. I sat with a board last night that thought they didn't want a project, and when they found out it was all going to be flood-proof, all of a sudden it looked like the greatest thing they were ever going to see. So people's feelings have changed, and we recently just wrapped up a comp plan in a community that's had extensive flooding, and we found that by actually going out and speaking with community groups, that we were getting a lot of feedback, and I think it helps to focus the plan and gives you an idea of what the community really wants.
That's what happened prior to this document being done, is people came who were interested, and they set up groups of people who discussed among themselves what they thought they would like. And then everybody began to share what their particular group felt, and it all began to get consolidated into a whole set of recommendations and ideas and developed into this plan.
Okay, it could very well
It's a
be
long
the-
time, but it
could-
did.
Okay, it could
It's a
very well be
beautiful
the
done,
first
yeah.
recommendation we make.
It's a terrific plan.
Is in fact engage the community on where we are,
Right.
where we are, where are we, and where do we want to go, and really get a sense of what people want and how people envision. Why are they in Rybrook? Why would they stay in Rybrook? Why would they stay in Rybrook for the next 20 years? And I think you're right, Sarah. I think it would be a real bad assumption that everyone has these static ideas, and that may be the very first thing to explore is a method of public engagement that would allow us to obtain information on what vision the greater majority or the consensus of Rybrook residents, what do they want? What do they want from the village? We may be surprised. We may think that they want something that they don't want. And when we're engaged in these transactional, in transactions where we're going to be bargaining on behalf of the village of what a developer is gonna have to give up, I mean, we're really making an executive decision without a lot of community input, because the timing to get community
Well,
input.
yes and no. It's the community that elected the people that are making that decision.
That's right.
So in effect, the community has an input.
It's true,
Yeah.
but that is the reality is that there are a lot of decisions that legislators make that the public wouldn't even know about when they were electing these people. That they're given to a certain extent carte blanche on behalf of the community to make certain decisions.
right.
And that, I mean, that's the sort of the negative face of democracy. You don't have complete control over what happens once you elect someone, because things change, and then they're left to make the decision on your behalf, and you can't say, well, why did you make this decision? You'll just not elect them next time if you don't like it. But while they're making the decision, you don't really have that much control.
The previous plan doesn't mention pickleball because there was no
Right,
pickleball.
exactly. It's a good point. Now we have pickleball.
A lot of people are investing in pickleball, real money.
Do you think it's
Yeah.
just,
There are,
think it has
it's
staying
fairly
power?
complicated
or
too.
will
I
it be
mean,
like highlight?
What?
just to,
I think it, who knows?
just
I
to
mean, it
harken
can
back
be-
to
it's
900
probably-
King Street for a
I would say it's
second.
more fad-like.
As you know, we've been endlessly debating with the developer about a pilot for 900 King. Now, a lot of people say, why are you giving them a pilot? Well, the answer is, if we don't make some concessions, there's a good chance the developer may just walk away. You say, well, that's fine. Somebody else will come in. One, that's not a guarantee.
That's right.
Who knows what the next person's going to want to develop there? And in the meantime, we're getting no tax revenue whatsoever on empty land. Not a good thing for the village, not a good thing for the school system. We desperately want to use 900 King. We want it developed. And we want it developed as soon as possible.
And that's
Money.
that is the variable that very seldom gets factored in. And that usually what leads to many times to bad plans.
Well,
And it doesn't mean we're going to roll over and give the developer anything he wants in terms of a
so
pilot.
far we have.
But it does mean we have to engage in the debate with him about a pilot.
and I bet if you put out Sarah's survey of what people want, lower taxes.
That would be number
That
one.
would be
yes.
number one.
Yes.
So it's important to remember that.
Yeah,
But-
and so, but if you don't have your commercial tax base,
That's right, you can't.
somewhere the
That's-
somewhere the bills have to get paid, so it
It's
means
the
the
dog
homeowners
chasing
have to
its
pay
tail,
more.
folks.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll work with our colleagues in putting something together. I think this is a really good discussion. And we'll try to narrow the field and focus on sort of specific recommendations that we would want to make, and see where it goes.
I have not been around for a while, and I drove through Portchester today. My God,
Yeah.
that city's changing.
Yeah.
The United Hospital was demolished.
Yeah, yeah.
A couple of buildings on Main Street going up. My God, that
Go away
really.
for a couple months and see what happens.
Wow.
They hate it. The people in Portchester don't like
Does
it.
anybody know what's going to go on where the United Hospital was?
A lot of things are going up. That's
Very
going to be, that
multi-use.
is going to be a center, residential, restaurants, a shopping mall, all kinds of.
Mixed use,
Mixed
mixed use.
use, completely mixed use.
And that has been approved, right?
It's well on its way, I gather. I don't know that anybody knows for sure, but according to what I've heard and read, it seems to be pretty much,
Downtown of Portchester is really changing.
but the people are screaming because what's gonna happen to Boston Post Road? That's right.
I'm actually doing a lease right now.
Well, that's one of the things, right.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Aye.
David, you have no idea what the